My boyfriend lost both his legs in a car accident while saving me. For this, I was willing to sever ties with my parents and marry him. For 10 years, I took care of him, enduring his increasingly violent temper. However, after once again being a victim of domestic abuse, I accidentally learned that in that car accident, the person he truly tried to save was a little boy who had run to the side of the road. It was just that I stood in between them, and Anthony pushed me away, annoyed that I was in the way, and that boy was Anthony's biological son. I was so angry that I couldn't breathe, and I died from a burst of blood. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the moment before he saved anyone. This time, I won't be the one standing in the way of your family's reunion. Chapter 1. I looked at Anthony standing before me, handsome and whole, his legs perfectly intact. His sparkling eyes seemed to hold the infinite light of the stars. It was nothing like the man I remembered, the one who had survived a car accident, only to be disfigured and amputated. His once lively eyes now cold and hostile, like a rat living in a gutter, unable to see even a sliver of daylight. I immediately realized I had been reborn. Laura, let's discuss our engagement as soon as possible. I can't wait to marry you. At that moment, Anthony's gaze toward me was filled with tender affection, his eyes brimming with love, but all I felt was disgust. Even the light touch of his fingers on my hand felt tainted, as if his touch carried a foul stench, making me nauseous. Ugh. I pushed Anthony, who was still fantasizing about our future, away and ran outside. Leaning against a tree, dry heaving, Anthony caught up to me, pinching his nose in disgust before quickly masking the look of disdain in his eyes. He patted my back awkwardly, glancing at the shabby sign of a street vendor nearby, wondering if I had eaten something bad, but still asking with feigned concern, Laura, what's wrong? Did you overheat? I wanted him to get away from me, but just as I opened my mouth, another wave of dry heaving hit me. I closed my eyes, and the tragic events of my past life came flooding back to me. That day, Anthony had taken me shopping. I had stood by the roadside, waiting for him. Suddenly, a car came speeding around the corner, heading straight toward me. I was unaware. Still waving at Anthony, he had rushed over in a panic, shoving me out of the way. I had hit my head on the curb and immediately blacked out. When I came to, Anthony was lying on the road, a pool of blood beneath him. What I didn't know was that during my brief unconsciousness, the little boy Anthony had tried to save was already taken away by his mother, as if nothing had happened. Back then, I had believed that Anthony had saved me, and my heart had been filled with gratitude and guilt. I had never questioned the fact that, had Anthony just pulled me out of the way, we both would have been safe. In fact, I had been standing in a place where the car could never have hit me. After Anthony was wheeled into surgery, I fervently prayed to every deity, wishing that he would survive. When his aunt arrived, she stormed to the hospital corridor, yanked my hair, and slapped me twice before I even realized what was happening. She cursed me, saying I was a bad omen and that I was the reason Anthony had been in the accident. The insults, like little slut and whore, kept pouring out of her mouth, because she was older than me, and because Anthony had been injured while trying to save me. I couldn't even defend myself. I felt so humiliated. I wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. It wasn't until my parents arrived that I realized how bad things could have gotten. Fortunately, Anthony was still alive, but his legs had been amputated, and he was left disabled. Upon hearing the news, Anthony's aunt sat in the hospital corridor, wailing uncontrollably. She threatened that if my family didn't cover all of Anthony's medical bills, living expenses, and compensation, she would make our lives a living hell. Since Anthony had been hurt trying to save me, I had already planned to take responsibility for all his medical costs. I was even prepared to sever ties with my parents and marry him. What I didn't know was that this would be the beginning of my tragic life. After marrying Anthony, his personality grew increasingly unstable due to his disability, and sometimes he would even lash out at me, out of gratitude for his life-saving act. I had always cared for him and tolerated his temper, but after 10 years of being a punching bag, I had become exhausted. Even Helen Keller would call me a veteran in enduring hardship. After being hit again by Anthony, I collapsed unconscious, lying on the ground. I vaguely felt someone kicking me. Then I heard Anthony's aunt sneering, "Laura is such a fool. She really believed it when you said you were trying to save her. She never questioned it for all these years." But luckily for her, she doesn't know you were actually saving your son. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so willing to be your unpaid, hardworking maid. When I learned the truth, I couldn't bear the humiliation of being deceived by such a scoundrel. Overcome with rage, I coughed up blood and died. The sun was scorching, making my head spin. Anthony was supporting me, trying to help me to a shady spot. I shook him off impatiently. How ridiculous. He wanted to discuss engagement with me, but he only took me to a street vendor for food. I had never paid attention to such details before, but looking back now, I realized Anthony had always been calculating. He often told others that, although my family was well off, he never took advantage of me. Even when we ate out, we took turns paying. Yes, we took turns paying. But what he didn't mention was that when it was my turn to pay, we would go to expensive Western restaurants or private dining rooms, where the cost was no less than $2,000 per person. When it was his turn, we ended up at street food stalls or shabby little shops where the cost barely exceeded $100. He really never took advantage of me. I don't feel well. I'm going home. I rubbed my temples, not sure if it was from the emotional stress, but my head was pounding as if a drill were being driven through it. I spoke weakly, but Anthony didn't seem to notice my pale face. He grabbed my arm, his tone unhappy. Didn't we agree to go to my aunt's place tonight? You're backing out at the last minute. Don't you worry that she'll like you even less? For our future, just bear with it. Let's go buy a gift at the mall first. Anthony didn't care that I was still feeling unwell, pulling me toward the mall with a firm grip. My anger flared, and I swung my arm, slapping him across the face. Didn't I say I'm not feeling well? Are you deaf? For the first time, I spoke to him so rudely and slapped him, leaving Anthony stunned. Then he got angry, his fists clenched, muscles straining. If we hadn't been in public, I was sure his next punch would land on me. Chapter 2. Laura. What's with the tantrum? You know very well that my aunt raised me. She's like my own mother. Can't you show some consideration for her? We're not even married yet, and you're acting so irresponsibly. I may have to reconsider our relationship. Ha! I'd rather stay as far away from your family as possible. Then let's break up. I shot Anthony a mocking glance and turned on my heel, hailing a cab without looking back. But I didn't notice how Anthony was watching my retreating figure, his gaze as poisonous as a snake's. My mind was a mess. I went home, only wanting to retreat to my room and rest. But unexpectedly, my dad had come home early from work. Laura, listen to your father. Break up with that bastard Anthony. As long as you break up with him, you can do whatever you want. Your dad will support you. This wasn't part of the script from my last life. Although my parents had never been fond of Anthony, they never stopped me from seeing him. It wasn't until he was left disabled after the accident that their stance became firm. But back then, I was too blinded by my feelings, thinking I couldn't let go of Anthony, who had saved me. No matter how much my mom cried, or how much my dad tried to persuade me, even when they threatened to sever ties, I still married Anthony. Seeing my dad's hair streaked with white, I felt a pang in my heart. Dad, don't worry, I've had my eyes opened. I've already broken up with Anthony. Saying this, I pulled out my phone and, in front of my dad, blocked all of Anthony's contact details. My dad rubbed his hands together in excitement, looking at me with a mix of relief and unspoken pain. My mom came out from the kitchen carrying a plate of cold jellyfish salad, and when she saw that my dad and I weren't fighting, she smiled. Your dad's being ridiculous. I don't know what's gotten into him. The moment he walked in, he started yelling about you breaking up with Anthony. If our kid wants to date, just let her. Why should we interfere as parents? She shot my dad a reproachful look, then turned to me. However, Laura, dating is one thing, but marriage is another. We won't force you into an arranged marriage, but marriage is a big deal, and it must be taken seriously. After going through the ringer, I finally understood. My parents weren't against me being with Anthony, they simply saw him for what he was. Someone who wasn't right for me. Thinking back to how I had hurt my parents so badly in my last life, choosing Anthony over them and staying estranged from them for 10 years, I felt deep shame. Savoring the delicious meal, I realized it had been years since I'd eaten my mom's cooking. During the meal, I was so focused on eating that I didn't notice the look my dad was giving me, one of hesitation, as though he was about to say something. After dinner, I took a walk with my mom in the garden, and my dad called me into his study. Before I could ask why he wanted to speak with me, my dad dropped a bombshell. Laura, tell me honestly, did you find something out? Is that why you broke up with him? Is it possible that you've been reborn too? I froze, stunned into silence. Could it be that my dad had been reborn as well? I looked up at him, trying to read his expression, searching for any hint or sign. I hoped this was just some ploy to stop me from reconciling with Anthony. A little trick he was playing. I didn't want him to know that, in my past life, I had been an absolute fool. But my dad's expression was so genuine, so filled with mixed emotions, that it didn't seem fake. If this was an act, then why wasn't he an actor? He could make a fortune in the entertainment industry. Dad, you can't really mean. I mean it, he confirmed. I swallowed hard and covered my face with my hands in embarrassment. Because of my obsession with love, I had ended up ruining myself. I felt utterly humiliated, especially facing the dad who had always raised me with so much care. But my dad didn't blame me for doing foolish things for a man. Instead, he gently patted my head, looking at me with a tender, pained expression. Don't worry, my dear. Last time, Anthony schemed and tricked you into that mess. This time, I won't let him get away with it. After exchanging some information with my dad, I learned that, in my past life, my parents hadn't completely given up on me. They had tried to reach out to me multiple times, but Anthony had intercepted the messages. Later, he even told them I had developed depression and self-harming tendencies, asking them to stay away so they wouldn't upset me. Your mom and I went to see you secretly a few times. We really did see you with injuries. We were afraid you might still be angry with us, so we didn't dare to show up in front of you. As my dad spoke, his anger grew, and he poked my forehead a few times. Who would have thought that those injuries were all caused by Anthony? You're really useless. Letting a cripple beat you. I lowered my head, not daring to speak. I still didn't know what had gotten into me back then. It was as if I had been cursed, with Anthony occupying my entire mind and heart. When he was unhappy, he'd take his anger out on me, and somehow, I let him do it. But wait a second. Anthony already had a son. Wasn't he scheming to marry me just for my family's money? Then why did he try to keep me from reconciling with my parents? It suddenly clicked. He didn't want me to wake up to reality, because then no one would be there to take care of him. Chapter 3. There was a knock on the door, and my mom entered, saying, "All right, old man, our daughter has broken up with him. Stop pestering her about it." My dad and I exchanged a glance, and without a word, we both agreed the events of my past life must never be revealed to my mom. It would only hurt her. Afterward, my dad had someone investigate Anthony's network more thoroughly. They uncovered some surprising information. My dad called me into his study and handed me a stack of documents. Anthony does indeed have an illegitimate child, and the kid's already 3 years old. I also had them look into the mother, and it turns out she's the daughter of my first love. Her name's Patricia. A few years ago, she came to see me with a letter from her mom, but I ignored her. Maybe she resented me for it. She actually encouraged Anthony to pursue you. My dad laid it all out in one breath. He seemed relieved but also weighed down with guilt. He felt responsible for the tragedy of my past life, thinking it was somehow his fault. But I didn't think so. Ultimately, it came down to human nature being malicious. If Anthony had any sense of morality, he wouldn't have been swayed by Patricia from the start. It was clear that he had his own ulterior motives. Lying in bed, I stared blankly at the chandelier on the ceiling. I thought I was just unlucky in love, but this was all part of a premeditated scheme. What was going on here? Was Patricia out of her mind? She was willing to use her own child's father as a pawn to trap me. She'd really invested everything into this plan. I turned over, a cold smile tugging at my lips. If she was going to play dirty, then she shouldn't blame me for being ruthless. The day I broke up with Anthony, he didn't show much of a reaction, and afterward, he didn't try to contact me, but I knew he wouldn't just let it go. He was likely waiting to brainwash me later. Sure enough, just 2 days later, he changed his number and called me. "Laura, there's a limit to how much you can throw a tantrum. I've given you time to reflect. By now, you should know you're in the wrong, right?" What kind of arrogant nonsense was this? Did he really think I was still the naive Laura from my past life? The one who let him walk all over me? We've broken up. Don't contact me again. What breakup? Laura, I warn you. Arguments are one thing, but don't go throwing around the breakup card. If you do, I'll take it seriously. Anthony shouted at me, but now that I was clear-headed, I could easily sense the panic hidden behind his angry tone. Do you really think I have time to play around with you? By the way, I'll be calculating the expenses during our relationship soon, so make sure you pay me back. In my last life, not long after my death, my parents had a car accident and passed away as well. The thought of how Anthony ended up with most, if not all, of our family's assets filled me with rage. I couldn't undo the past, but this time, he wouldn't get a single penny from me. I thought that after receiving my bill, Anthony would continue pestering me, unwilling to pay, but he was even more shameless than I imagined. He went live, tearfully recounting our sweet moments to his audience. In his narrative, he was the devoted, love-struck simp, while I was painted as the gold-digging girl. He implied that I had played with his feelings and that after breaking up, I was extorting him for a large sum of money. When I found his live stream, he was sitting there, disheveled, pouring his heart out to the audience. I really didn't expect this. The girl I loved wholeheartedly for 2 years has turned out like this. We were supposed to get engaged, but she suddenly flipped on me. Laura, I really don't want to break up. Please don't leave me, okay? Seeing his scruffy face made my stomach churn. But that wasn't the end of it. Anthony pretended to wipe his eyes and continued. Laura, you know, during these 2 years of being with you, I didn't manage to save up much money. I really can't come up with $400,000. But don't worry, I'll work even harder from now on, so you can live a good life. Let's not break up, okay? I beg you. Anyone who didn't know the situation would probably think he was just madly in love with me. So when I saw the barrage of hateful comments aimed at me, I wasn't surprised. But when I looked more closely, I noticed the live stream only had a few hundred viewers. Yet the barrage of comments was overwhelming. I immediately understood. He must have hired a bunch of online trolls to flood the chat. I smiled to myself. Anthony was such an idiot. Didn't he know that public opinion was a double-edged sword? He thought he could manipulate the narrative and force me to stay with him, but he never considered that things could backfire. Most of the people watching his live stream were likely paid trolls. That wouldn't work for me. It was time to turn up the heat and make sure the whole internet knew how pathetic he was. I reached out to my friend who worked in digital marketing and asked her to help me boost traffic to Anthony's live stream. She had a lot of connections in the industry. Within 10 minutes, his viewership numbers started climbing. Soon, over 8,000 people had joined the stream. This took Anthony by surprise. He had only intended to create the illusion that everyone hated me, but he didn't expect to be exposed to such a large audience. After all, he wasn't exactly innocent and couldn't withstand a deeper scrutiny. Chapter 4. Fearing the situation would escalate, Anthony hastily ended his live stream. Immediately after, he called me, his voice filled with apology. Sorry, Laura. I had a few drinks and just wanted to vent on live stream, but I didn't expect so many people to be hurling insults at you. Laura, let's get back together. If you agree, I promise I won't live stream again. I hadn't realized it before, but Anthony, despite being a grown man, had a bit of a green tea personality to him. This was a subtle threat, but I wasn't afraid of him. In fact, I was more concerned he might stop altogether than all the insults I received would have been for nothing. No, thank you, Mr. Anthony. I don't do second chances. Please pay back the 387,216 yuan as soon as possible. And after that, let's pretend we've never met. Laura, why did you suddenly break up with me? Is it because I wanted to take you to meet my aunt? But she's the only family I have left. Of course, I'd take you to meet her. Seeing that his threats weren't working, Anthony softened his tone. Don't you remember the good times we had? Didn't we promise to have 2 kids after we got married? 1 boy. And, enough. Anthony, you know exactly what you've done. If you keep bothering me, don't blame me for getting nasty. Him mentioning a boy really struck a nerve with me. It was like he had stabbed me in the chest. Anthony's live stream was seen by my parents. My mom was furious when she heard his twisted version of events, her face turning bright red. She insisted we get someone to shut down all of Anthony's social media accounts. But my dad stopped her, reminding her that if they did that, It would be like admitting Anthony's accusations were true. Leave this to our good daughter. I trust she can handle it. My parents only watched the latter half of Anthony's livestream. Before, there had only been a few hundred viewers. But suddenly, there was a surge of traffic. It didn't take long for Anthony to realize I was behind it. Knowing I had a plan, he stepped back and let me handle it. After all, this was my grudge to settle, and it would feel much better if I dealt with it myself. He would just provide some backup from the sidelines. The next day, I didn't even have time for breakfast. Rushing out the door, I was supposed to start working at my dad's company today, but I'd stayed up too late last night and overslept. Hey, Laura, eat something before you leave. Your dad said you can go in the afternoon if you want. I'm good. I'm leaving now. I didn't want to be late on my first day. But in the end, I didn't even make it to the company. I got news that Anthony and Patricia were having lunch at a fancy restaurant. I quickly got ready and rushed over. When I arrived, I sat at the table next to where Anthony had made a reservation, hoping to overhear what they would say. By noon, Anthony and his family arrived. Patricia didn't seem to care that they were in a public place, and started discussing their plans with Anthony. Anthony, do you think scaring Laura with the live stream will work? Anthony took a sip of wine. His expression darkened. If a small scare doesn't work, then we'll do something bigger. I can't believe I haven't been able to take down that little brat. Laura, I can't swallow this frustration. Why should that slut Laura have both her parents, while I'm just some bastard with no father? It seemed that the unpleasant memories were resurfacing for Patricia, and her face contorted with anger. Her son shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Noticing his son's unease, Anthony picked up some food for him, then gently patted Patricia's hand to calm her. Patricia, don't get so upset. Once we take down Chi, Laura will be at your mercy. Our priority now is to meet with the Chi family and get you recognized as their daughter. Looking at his obedient son, who was eating quietly, Anthony was feeling confident. Even though Patricia was a woman, she already had a son. Once the child changed his surname to Chi, Anthony was sure the Chi family would favor them over Laura. I couldn't hold back a spit of water when I heard their conversation. So that's why Patricia hated me so much. She thought she was my dad's illegitimate daughter. No wonder she saw me as an eyesore. Hearing this, I couldn't help shaking my head. These two were delusional. My dad might seem strict and distant to outsiders, but at home, he was a devoted husband. He would never make a move like that. Besides, I'd heard my mom joke about it before when my dad saved his company in his youth. His first love, Maria, kept sending him flirtatious texts. For every text she sent, my dad blocked a number, and over time, she used dozens of them, but he never replied. Eventually, she gave up. There was no way Patricia could be my dad's illegitimate daughter. I couldn't bear to listen to their idiotic fantasies any longer, so I walked over and sat down at their table. Who are you? When Anthony saw me, his expression faltered for a moment. Then, remembering he had Patricia and their son, he didn't care much about confronting me anymore. Oh, Laura, are you regretting it? Want to get back together? Too bad. You're too late. He tapped his fingers on the table. Smug as ever. You still don't know. Patricia is also your dad's daughter. Her mother is your dad's first love. Do you really think you can compete with Patricia? Anthony's delusional vision of a happy future made him look like he was about to drool. He stared at me as if I were an insect, easily crushable at any moment. Without saying a word, I pulled out my phone and dialed my dad's number. Chapter 5. Dad, you need to come here quickly. There's an illegitimate daughter popping up. Not coming to the company to start work. Running off to play? And you dare joke about your dad? His serious tone couldn't quite mask the affection behind it. I glanced at Patricia, who was so jealous her fingers seemed ready to snap from tension, and gave her a mocking smile. I'm not joking. I'm at the Grand Garden restaurant. Patricia knew I wouldn't be so kind as to help her connect with my dad. But with her situation, it was really hard for her to get an opportunity to meet him. Even though she was afraid I might set her up, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Come on, Anthony, before my dad arrives. Let's settle the score. I pulled out a long list, my bills from the time I had spent with Anthony. Every single item, even the smallest expense like a lollipop, was on there. 387,216, 5 yuan. Should I transfer it via Alipay, WeChat, or a bank transfer? Looking at Anthony's face, which had turned the color of pig liver, I gasped dramatically, then started scanning him with my eyes. His designer clothes, gifts I had given him during our relationship. I raised my voice. No way. No way. The guy who wants to be the boss and marry a young beauty can't even pay this little amount of money? In front of Patricia, Anthony didn't want to lose face. Though he was extremely reluctant, he gritted his teeth and transferred the money, thinking about the bigger gains down the road. When I saw the transfer notification, I smiled in satisfaction. By this time, my dad had arrived. He gave Patricia a cold look, scrutinizing her, and snorted. "My daughter says you think you're my illegitimate daughter? You can't just imagine things like that. Let's do a paternity test." My dad nodded to two people who had come with him. They stepped forward, showing Patricia their work credentials and saying, "Hello, ma'am. We're notaries from the notary office. We're here to oversee the paternity test." Patricia, thinking this whole thing was a formal process to acknowledge her, felt a sense of smug satisfaction. She glanced at me, returning my earlier mockery with a provocative look. I smiled lightly, but she didn't realize my dad was just making sure that, if the test results were negative, Zhang Yaxin wouldn't cause any unnecessary trouble. After the sample was collected, my dad didn't linger for a second longer. He called me to leave with him. Patricia tried to get her son to call my dad grandpa to establish a connection, but my dad didn't even spare her a glance. I stood up and cast a meaningful glance at the pair of scheming idiots, saying, "Anthony, if I were you, I'd hurry up and get the marriage certificate with Patricia. If she really is my dad's illegitimate daughter, do you think you'll still find some young stud to replace you? Or will you still matter as this old leaf? And you, Patricia, have you ever considered what you'll do if you have no relation to my dad? If you don't hurry up and make things official with Anthony, your son will forever be an illegitimate child." My clumsy attempt at provoking them was surprisingly effective. As expected, that afternoon, Anthony and Patricia went to get their marriage certificate. I sighed in relief. This was the right thing to do. A family needs to be whole and proper. That night, Anthony went live again. This time, he aimed to destroy my reputation and stir up online harassment against me. He gave his live stream a very eye-catching title: "Cheat Group's Daughter Plays with Commoners' Emotions, Extorts Money." As soon as the live stream started, thousands of viewers flooded in. I got the news and immediately had my best friend pour traffic into Anthony's live stream. Less than half an hour into the stream, the viewer count hit over 100,000. It seemed Anthony had discovered a goldmine. He hadn't expected such a huge turnout. If he kept doing this, he could quickly become a popular online personality, making money with ease. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he struggled to suppress a grin, forcing himself to make a sorrowful expression, and began slandering me. The comments section exploded with anger, and insults flew by so fast I could hardly keep up. "Chi's daughter? Which Chi? She's already so rich, and still extorting people? Is her family going bankrupt? How can someone so disgusting exist? Playing with emotions. No house. Filthy bitch. Coming out to face your death. You really think just because you've got some money, you can do whatever you want?" There were even worse insults that turned into a string of garbled nonsense on the screen. Clearly, Anthony was thrilled with the outcome. Destroying me would make it easier for Patricia to take my place. And, by the way, it also boosted his new business venture. What a deal! After more than 2 hours, the live stream ended with Anthony gaining over 200,000 new followers. Meanwhile, I was being relentlessly attacked online. My inbox was flooded with hateful messages. Only a day later, my phone number was leaked, and I was bombarded with harassing calls and messages. I had to get a new SIM card. The incident had gotten quite a bit of attention and was even trending on social media. The timing was right. It was my turn to strike back. On the day the paternity test results came in, I went live as well, heading to the testing center with my dad. The heat from the previous days, plus my friend's help, meant that as soon as I went live, almost 100,000 people tuned in. I've been getting cursed for days now, so it's time for you to see the truth. I sat in the backseat of the car, ignoring the hate comments flooding the screen, and posted videos of Anthony and Patricia conspiring in the restaurant, as well as evidence of Anthony's lies. As viewers watched the videos, the comments began to change. Some praised me for being beautiful. Some scolded Anthony and Patricia for using each other. and many were excited about the juicy rich family drama they were witnessing. Seeing the change in the comments, I couldn't help but curl my lip in disdain. By the way, to all those who've been cursing me these past few days, get ready for a court summons. Chapter 6. Did the trolls who harassed me online really think they could walk away scot-free just because I exposed Anthony and Patricia? What a lovely dream they must be living in. How are you going to sue so many people? It's just a few words. It's not like we did anything to you. Some tried to backpedal, offering rushed apologies, while others doubled down, calling my bluff, thinking there was no way I could bring them all to court. Keep it coming, trolls. My family's legal team was meticulously gathering evidence. Not a single one of them would slip through the cracks. I walked into the testing center, phone in hand, ready to broadcast. Anthony and Patricia were already there, waiting nervously. The notary confirmed that the paternity test results were accurate and valid. My dad opened the report, his expression calm and unreadable, then held it up to the camera for the viewers to see. The words were crystal clear: no biological relationship. I ended the live stream and handed the report to Patricia, whose eyes glittered with greed. Her hands trembled as she took the paper, sharing it with Anthony. No, this can't be true. My mom told me you're my father. It's her. Laura must have bribed the testing center. This is fake. Patricia, unable to accept the truth, threw the report to the ground and stomped on it, her face contorted in rage. 27 years ago, when my business was struggling, Maria dumped me immediately. My dad said coldly. I never saw her again, not even before she died. Do the math. There's no way you're my daughter. With that, he grabbed my arm and we left without looking back. Anthony snapped out of his daze and tried to chase after us, but we were long gone by then. I thought after everything that had happened, Anthony would be too ashamed to show his face, but I underestimated the thickness of his skin, realizing Patricia wasn't my dad's daughter. He didn't even bother consoling her. Instead, he went to my house to find me. When he saw my car pulling into the driveway, he threw himself in front of it, forcing the driver to brake abruptly. Are you insane, Anthony? I shouted. If you want to die, do it somewhere else. Laura, you blocked me. I had no other choice but to wait for you here. This was truly shameless. He didn't even notice the sheer disgust on my face. He rubbed his scruffy, unshaven face as he looked at me with pleading eyes. I waited for you all night. If this were the old me, his pitiful demeanor would have made me want to sacrifice myself to comfort him. Now, it just made me nauseous. Anthony, what do you want? I asked coldly. Isn't it obvious? I want to win you back, he declared, his eyes brimming with fake sincerity as he held out a wilted bouquet of red roses. I scoffed at the pathetic flowers, my lips curling into a mocking smile. You're a married man, and you want to chase after me? Don't have a mirror? Go find a puddle to see how pitiful you look. Stop clinging to me like a dog. Anthony's face darkened, the veneer of affection shattering. Patricia was a lost cause, but he wasn't ready to let go of me yet. He continued groveling, begging for forgiveness. I merely watched his performance with icy detachment. Seeing I wasn't moved, Anthony suddenly grabbed at the car door, trying to drag me out. Laura, you think I'm a dog? You think you can just dump me like that? Fine. You want to break up? Give me 30 million yuan, and we'll call it even. So that's what this was about, money. He dared to demand such an outrageous sum? Clearly, I'd been too lenient with him. Without a word, I grabbed the baseball bat from under the seat, rolled down the window, and jabbed it into his shoulder. I put my full strength into the swing. Anthony stumbled back several steps, clutching his shoulder and grimacing in pain. Drive, I said to the driver. As we sped off, I glanced back, watching the scenery blur behind us. A small pang of regret hit me. Anthony might not lose his legs this time, like in my previous life. All because I wouldn't resort to illegal means. But fate had its own plans. That night, I received news that made me want to jump for joy. Anthony had been hit by a car and sent to the hospital. After being humiliated by me, he'd stormed off, crossing the street in a rage and running a red light. A speeding car couldn't stop in time and sent him flying. To save his life, the doctors had to amputate his legs. The wheel of karma turned. No one escapes the heavens' judgment. Now, Patricia would be stuck digging wild vegetables. Patricia wasn't the loyal, love-struck type. She took care of Anthony briefly for their son's sake, but eventually, she grew tired of his volatile temper and their impoverished life. When he hit her, she took what little money he had left and ran, leaving even their son behind. Anthony's aunt wanted to take him in, but her husband and children vehemently opposed it, leaving her no choice but to drop the matter. With no legs, Anthony couldn't take care of himself, let alone his son. In his bitterness, he sent the boy to an orphanage. As for himself, he gave up completely. He could be found begging on a bridge, scraping by to survive. One day, while passing by, I saw a filthy figure kneeling by the stairs, bowing repeatedly to passers-by. Feeling a twinge of pity, I pulled out a few bills, but when I saw that it was Anthony, I immediately put the money back. My money could be wasted, donated, or even thrown to the wind, but it would never go to scum like him. Anthony's eyes flared with anger as he realized the money had been withdrawn. When he saw it was me, his pupils contracted in shock before gleaming with a strange hope. He crawled toward me, desperate, terrified. I turned and ran. I'd built a good life, free from toxic people like him. I wasn't about to let him ruin it. Later, someone told me about Patricia's fate. Laughing as they recounted it, she ran off to the south with Anthony's money. It wasn't much, and she blew through it quickly. She wouldn't settle for honest work, so she ended up in that line of business. Last I heard, she got sick and infected a client. His wife caught her and beat her up badly. After that, no one knows where she went or if she's even alive. I smiled faintly as I listened. Knowing she was living a miserable life brought me peace.